Welcome to Subramani. I'm going to talk a little about investing for you, or rather, what I would have recommended to myself 30 40 years ago, or what I would recommend to you now is first of all, realize that there are very many theories of investing. So MPT or modern portfolio theory was a fantastic theory for Harry Markowitz, and he got the Nobel Prize. But it does not happen in real life. People don't sit and use the theory the way Harry Markowitz thought it should be done, right? Many people will talk about it, etc., but it does not mean it gets implemented. So there are two sets of people. One is those who actually invest and who have spoken about it, like Buffetts of the world. And second, those who are theoreticians, who know all about the theory, will talk about the theory, but they've never ever done it in life. Both are necessary, right? One is a pure research guy and one is a practitioner. You need to read both, and then you need to understand that you have to discount the research guy much more than you need to discount the practitioner. Also, when the practitioner says something, it is also your own ability to understand what the practitioner says. So the practitioner who has earned the 40,000 crores is not a person with whom you can argue. Maybe he's wrong, maybe he talks through his hat, but he's made money. Now largely money serves as a shield, or what in Hindi we call kavach kundal, against what that person says, because it's a huge defense for him. He's been right. I do think there are some very big investors today who have earned a lot of money through activities which you and I may not consider correct or good, and until there is a probe against that person or something, it doesn't come out. So he looks like a genius. Harshad Mehta looked like a genius till people found out from where the money was coming and why it was not going back, right, and things like that. And then you realize, oh, this is how he made money. So same could be true for many people, men, women, whatever. So be careful. Don't get carried away. Read all theories, but see what is applicable to you. Second, investing is like a nice dress, right? What looks good on somebody else may not look good on you. So learn to understand that the model looks very good. It's he or she is a artist. They're acting. They have spent maybe 3 hours on makeup, and their job is to look good. Their job is to look perfectly like this is like a model, right? A model is a model. So that's how they look. It does not mean it will look good on you. We have all experienced this. We go into a shop, we see a mannequin wearing a shirt, and we think we will look like that. Not true, right? Unless you're built like that model, you have a flat stomach, you have a broad chest, right? You're not that's not going to look same on you. Similarly, for investing styles, what suits you is what you have to do. Now if you have a friend whose grandfather or maybe his great grandfather knew about stock investing, did their own business and invested, that person's comfort level at market volatility or during volatile times like March 2020 will be very, very different from what yours will be. If your father was a school teacher who kept all his money in bank deposits, and today you are becoming an investor, your personality is very different from the person whom you are trying to copy. So don't try to copy somebody who is completely out of league with you, right? Third, start writing a diary about what you have invested. I have made a big mistake in not maintaining a diary for a very long period, started very late, and now I'm not even regular in updating it because I think I've arrived in life completely wrong. Maintaining a diary will always be useful. It will be a huge incentive for you to write down what you're doing, and maybe if you're very good at it, you can use that as a way to get a job in the fund management industry, right? You can go there and show your book and say, this is what I did, this is what I thought, this is what has happened, and this is how I've outperformed. Or to say, during this period I underperformed and I realized what mistakes I made. I paid too much attention to the price, I did not pay enough attention to the business, or I paid full attention to the business, I did not realize I was overpaying. You will learn this on your own. Don't believe me, don't believe that I've always been right. I've lost a lot of money, and you also have to realize that I come from real ancient times when we bought bonds for yield and equity for appreciation. Look at the way people are buying equity and saying, "Oh, I will get so much of dividend yield." That's absolute utter nonsense. You buy because there is going to be growth, because if there is no growth, there is going to be no PE. So all the dividend yield will vanish when the PE starts shrinking. Great examples are Coke in the international level and ITC at the Indian level. If the income from sugary drinks drops because people are getting more intellectual, they're analyzing what they're buying and they're finding that it has got too much sugar, and there is no great incentive from the government to push this, and if the government levies a tax on bad food items, which I would, but we don't have it in the world, we don't have it in India for sure. So Coke PE has to go down because Coke will grow less. ITC PE had to go down because it will grow less, right? So this is very plain. You can't buy a share for dividend yield, nor can you buy, if you are in the US today, you're buying bonds because you're sure it will appreciate because interest rates seem to be at an all-time low. But how long will it remain there? We have no clue because we are dependent on the government. So understand all this. Get your fundamentals right. Understand that bonds are meant for yield, even though interest rates today are very close to zero, if not negative. So therefore, buying bonds because it will definitely appreciate because the interest rates will go down seems to be very difficult. So you have to buy bonds for yield, and you have to buy equity for dividends and growth. Because the price of a share is made up of three things. One is the return on a share is made up of three things. One is the dividend that you get, and second is the price change which happens. Price change is a function of EPS and PE. You can find a company which is fabulously good business and it will sustain over the next 10 years, 15 years. It might even grow at a good pace. You can find all that. But if you're overpaying in the price, which means you're paying a very high PE, so all the so-called growth in the EPS will be lost due to shrinkage of the PE. So remember that when you're buying a share, you have to look at everything. You have to look at dividend yield, you have to look at potential appreciation, you have to look at potential increase in the PE, potential change in the PE, and potential change in the EPS. So if EPS is growing at a good pace and you think there is room for PE expansion, and then it becomes a good share. It does not become a good share just because there is a dividend yield, because all the dividend yield can be lost in the fall in the share price. So at 330, there was people who were buying ITC, and maybe they were buying for dividend yield, I have no clue, but all that was lost when the price fell to 170, right? So remember that, remember why we buy equity, remember why we buy bonds. These fundamentals don't change. And if you are going to invest, maintain a diary. Think of yourself as a person making a pitch to a fund manager and arguing as to why a share is a good share, a good reason to buy a share. Write down your reasons, maintain your diaries, keep the working paper if you have worked on physical paper. If you have kept it in Excel sheets, keep those Excel sheets. Or if you have been an investor long enough, go back 5 years and see why you bought a share, see how much of the growth has happened because of increase in EPS, how much because of PE, and how much due to generally euphoria in the market and market being high. Then you realize as to why you have gained. Then you find out what did you think 5 years ago. Now if you have not maintained a diary, chances are you forget what you, and then you tell yourself, yeah, I knew this PE expansion will happen, or I knew this EPS will grow at this pace. We are bluffing ourselves, right? Like the famous example with Ramdev Agarwal gives. We all bought Eicher for the good trucks that they make, and it is still true. The best production people in the country in the heavy segment of the heavy HCV are from Eicher. Eicher has that quality, but where did Eicher make money? It made money in two-wheelers. So sometimes you get the argument right and the price wrong, and sometimes you get the argument completely wrong but you get the price right. I'd keep both, but it's very important for you to know how you made money, and stop pretending that you knew that this is going to happen. You will always pretend, your mind will always tell you that this is part of behavioral finance, and you feel very justified. See, I bought this and the price went up. But if you bought it for the wrong reason, then you're lucky. If you bought it for the right reason, that is skill. Skill can be duplicated, luck can't be. Be careful about that. Thank you. One more thing which I would like to add in this letter to an investor would be to say that you actually have to do it. One is to go and create a paper portfolio in 2-3 places, and one is to put in your own money. It has to be only that much money which you can afford to lose, and then see what happens, because the lessons which you really remember, the ones which you actually do, because creating paper portfolios looks very nice and intellectually stimulating, but you don't remember the lessons the way you remember when you do it on your own. But maintaining the diary and noting down what you did right, what you did wrong, whether it's your personal portfolio or a paper portfolio which you've created, can be a huge way could be a huge way forward. Thanks.